Bad bosses are not born, they're made. One unchecked habit, one missed boundary, one fear based reaction at a time. And if you've ever worked for someone who weaponized urgency, fired off midnight emails, or managed through intimidation, you already know how much damage a single leader can do. By the time you're done with this episode, you will understand three things. First, why hustle culture creates short bursts of output, but destroys clarity, creativity, and long term performance, and how real performance leadership builds in rest, recovery, and presence. Second, how fear based leadership skills, trust, and innovation, and the simple habits that separate great leaders from the Medusas of the workplace, including kindness, vulnerability, and coaching instead of controlling. And thirdly, how to manage up, advocate for yourself, and spot your own bad boss tendency so you never become the leader you once ran from. My guest today is Mita Mallick, the best-selling author of Reimagine Inclusion and The Devil Emails at Midnight. She is a culture-shaping executive whose work has influenced global brands and whose insights have appeared in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Time, and Harvard Business Review. Well, Mita, it's so nice to have you on the show. And I'm sure everybody that's listening is like, the devil emails at midnight? Like, I do that. What are you talking about? Like, come on. That's an interesting title. But anyway, welcome to the show. And you'll have to tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, the book, The Devil Emails at Midnight, What Good Leaders Can Learn from Bad Bosses, is getting quite a reaction. But that was my point as a marketer. You either love it or you hate it. And I'm okay with that.
It's a great title. How much truth is behind that statement alone in terms of these are overzealous, owners or bosses, or they are control issues?
Sure.
Without me reading the book, which of course I want my listeners to go read the book, and I will too. But how much truth is in that statement that this is some sinister stuff that's actually happening at midnight? Leave me alone.
Well, it's inspired by one of my first bosses in corporate America, who I was so excited to work for. The feeling wasn't mutual. And she only had time for me during the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. when she consistently dumped her inbox onto mine. And she did not have time for me in the office. And the story goes, I was like a golden retriever chasing her around the office. I wanted attention. I wanted her to see me. I wanted her to give me time. I even chased her out into the parking lot once, right? Trying to get attention from her. So I think that's one of the biggest complaints we have in any relationship. You don't have enough time for me. So it's time being the most precious commodity, and how do we utilize that? And if you're only emailing your teams at midnight or off hours, and that's your only form of communication, there's something bigger that's going on in that culture.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems so counterproductive. I mean, just to not be present. You mentioned even before we started this program, you're like, look, I'm present, I'm energized. And it's like,
yes.
Yeah, I think that's what a good leader, good person, somebody that's really engaged does. So why would they take somebody that's excited, like you were like, I want to work for this person, and oh man, this is not what I thought it was going to be at all. What an incredible lesson. And I'm sure there's many more lessons of poor leadership. Maybe you can share a few more because, gosh, somebody's right in front of you. They're excited. They came to work for you. And yet somewhere along the line, I'm guessing it didn't end the way that you would like.
I think this is the biggest challenge facing leaders in the next few years, especially as we race to all embrace AI. And surprise, I'm not an AI agent or bot. I'm human, right? So we're all up against this. And you have to be the type of leader who can be really thinking about how do you lead your team during intense drive periods, but then how do you rest and recover? Because I'm not an Uber app. I can't be on demand. And that is when, companies are so concerned with their highest performers. They're going to lead to burnout. So when we started the conversation, you said to me, oh, come on, like the devil emails at midnight. We've all done that. Yeah, I've emailed at midnight. I'm not always proud of it. But here's the thing. I just launched a book. Yeah, I've certainly been in a drive period, but I'm going to rest and recover. It's just not sustainable. And that's what I think people have to think about. And listen, I don't know about you, but I've sold a lot of beauty products, a lot of food products. I've sold SaaS software. I have never been a 911 operator. a crisis counselor. I've never worked in an emergency room. I've never done anything, honestly, that is life or death. And so the other thing is when you're consistently having this is urgent, this needs to be done now, I'm emailing at midnight, you're actually burning through your social capital, your political capital as a leader. Because if I keep saying, this is urgent, every night I'm emailing, people are going to start to tune that out.
Yeah, and it's pretty common, unfortunately. We just actually have somebody with us right now, and there's a badge of honor to like, wow, he is a workaholic in a good way. Like he does amazing stuff. He's performing extremely well. The accolades are incredible, and yet, how good is the work that they're actually doing? If there's no shutdown, right? And the rest and recover, like you said, I'm driving hard right now doing the book. But this rest and recover, now I'm actually seeing things more clearly. I'm making better decisions. So this rise and grind and just grind culture, I don't know. I understand it and I've been a part of it, but I don't think it's really yielding the results that we probably were hoping for.
I don't think so either. And I think it's only going to get worse. And I think that if you are leading teams and you're thinking, what's my competitive advantage? It is performance-driven leadership. Most high performers like yourself, like myself, people who are really driven, people will ask me like, well, what separates that? And what is the one thread you see actually when it comes to bad bosses? And it's like, here it is. It's not that big of a secret. It's that you don't take care of yourself. You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You're not exercising. You're not stepping away from the keyboard. I'm not saying that I'm doing a 3 a.m. ice bath, right? But it's like, what are the things that spark joy, that fill me up so I can be in service of others? And that's where I think, when you really think about it, it's like hustle culture, that's the backlash. It's not, and it's interesting because what you're saying is there can be short-term results. There's long-term consequences. And I love what you just said. Yeah, it's the badge of busyness. Like I'm producing a lot for you over and over again, but what's the quality like if I'm constantly emailing at like 12 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m., et cetera. And I'm sure that you saw recently, the news of the Japanese prime minister, which has been getting a lot of headlines. She sleeps like only 2-3 hours a day and calls meetings at 3 a.m. with her team. You're like, is this real? Is this like April Fool's? No, it's real. Like this has been something that has been swirling around the media about her leadership style.
Yeah, the personal toll that this, again, I don't know this woman, so I can't actually, but I'm going to guess that perhaps there's a failed marriage in there. Perhaps the health long term, it's really not looking great. And I think that's what I want people to hear is, look, you can accomplish great things and not sacrifice all these things. It's actually why I have a job, Mita. Like I have a job because so many executives do exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They are doing. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. And to your point, we don't know like what kind of, I think what you're trying to say with the Japanese prime minister using her as an example, because she's in the media, we don't know what kind of pain she's under and what insecurities she's facing. And that's what I wanted to add when you were talking about when you're working with the leaders as well, what's actually happening behind the screen.
Yeah. And this is the point that I hope everybody can hear is like, look, you can be a really effective, powerful, as you called it, performance-driven leader that's performing at very, very high levels. And you can have the family at home and you can have your health. These are possible. And yet somewhere along the line, I don't know where it came from, but it's like, no, I'm just going to go sleep 2 hours a night. Like, listen to Matthew Walker. That is irreparable damage. You can never change that.
Yeah.
And if I could reach out to this woman, I'd be like, let's focus on you a little bit so that you can actually show up as the best leader that you can be. I'm sure we could talk on the subject for hours. Yeah. Tell me specifics when it comes to poor leadership, other examples other than emailing late at night.
That. Yeah. Until I worked for this boss, no one in my career or my personal life, not my parents, not my brother, not my husband, no one had ever screamed and yelled at me. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. And here I am working for Medusa. Now for our listeners, your listeners' audience, you should know that I've nicknamed everyone in the book. And there's a reason behind that. Also because I'm not interested in naming, shaming people. I've worked in a lot of different places. I'm sure they're good leaders now. But Medusa screamed and yelled at everybody publicly, privately humiliated people. She was the equal opportunity bully. She went after everybody. And this is also the boss who threw a Chanel shoe at a colleague, which thankfully missed her head. But this is like the makings of a Netflix series. I mean, I cannot make this up. I still have very clear memories of where I sat on this open floor. And I'll never forget, very early on, probably I want to say 6 months into this role, I was motivated by fear. I was scared every day. I showed up at the office, and that actually drove short-term results for me, right? So fear drives short-term results because I want to outwork the bully. I can have her leave me alone if I just exceed all these KPIs and impress her. But there was something deeper to our point earlier going on there. It didn't matter. She would just, I mean, I didn't have children at this time, but it was like temper tantrums, throwing pens across the room, like all kinds of things. It did not matter. So then what happens? Fear kills innovation, it kills trust, it kills productivity. Fear will kill your culture in the long term. And I just started to check out. I was like, well, I don't need to actually do this much. I'm just going to go under the radar. I'm going to come in maybe to work a little later. I'm going to call out sick a few days. You know, all these things just happen. It's like the candle and the flame, that analogy, the flame is starting to flicker out. That's what happened to me and so many other people. And so that to this day, I just don't understand that tactic. And we're drawn to it, right? I've been drawn to it as a leader. When the going gets tough, maybe a little fear. Maybe if I get them scared a little bit, it's going to drive results, but it will just end in your talent leaving in the long term. People are not going to stay for that. You know, job security is dead. And it used to be that you could give me a paycheck as a company for every 2 weeks because I would get health insurance, I'd get pension, I was guaranteed my job. You know, I had someone I knew a long time ago who worked at AT&T. He got like a gold Rolex after 30 years of service. Like that doesn't happen anymore. But and in exchange, it was okay if there were bad behaviors. I tolerated it, knowing that loyalty was there. I think many people did. And I think that's where you're seeing the generational shift, where people are like, well, I'm not going to take it anymore. I could lose my job tomorrow. Why would I stay? Right? Or why would I not speak up when I see this kind of abuse taking place in the workplace?
Do you think it was just because great leadership wasn't modeled for them? And because I'm thinking of a great example literally today. Think of your superstar. Everybody stop for a second. Think on your company, your superstar. Okay. Now think of maybe somebody that's not performing well. And here's the thing. They both probably came in very, very excited about their job. And if you're not a great leader, you are in danger of losing both the superstar and the person not performing. Now you may say, okay, well, great. I want to lose that underperformer anyway. Well, actually, let's look in the mirror. Perhaps you created both of these things.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the fear, the superstar crushes it, but now you're not giving them the recognition and or the promotions, which is another thing that I'm seeing all the time.
Yes.
And it's like you're taking these people that are excited, they want to be there, they want to work for who wasn't Medusa in the beginning, but became this, right? Or at least the veil came off. And it's like, gosh, if you look in the mirror, leaders, this all starts and stops with you. If you're the, I guess, maybe founder and CEO of this company, perhaps. I don't know. So is it poor leadership?
Yeah. I mean, the premise of my book is bad bosses aren't born, they're made. Exactly what you say. They're the environment of their circumstances, life experiences. And, you know, interestingly, we talk about Medusa. Any of these people who were villainized, they all have a backstory. Medusa, Maleficent, Scar. I'm in a phase with my kids watching all these Disney movies, but all these villains we like to, you know, even the Devil Wears Prada, right? You watch that, some of my favorite movies. You're like, wow, this bad boss villainized. And there's always a backstory to your point. What has happened? And I hate to be as trite as hurt people, but something's happened. And you work with a lot of executives, as you were saying, who are on their journey. Something's happened that they haven't healed from that trauma. I don't say, work past it, you haven't worked through it. And then you are actually pouring that onto your teams, whether you realize it or not, you're inflicting that onto them.
So let's model some of the good behavior. You know, I was on the phone earlier and somebody said, what's the best leadership book I should start reading? Because they want to start their journey.
Yeah.
And I paused for a moment and I don't know how many hundreds of leadership books I've read through the years, but quite a bit. And I thought, okay, let me start here as the foundation. I think I gave him one of Maxwell's. I was like, this is a good place to start. Okay, let's start here and we'll talk. But my point is this is a superstar at a company. He's 30 now, so he's had time through college and then, almost a decade in the workforce. And yet he's never really, other than examples, he hasn't been taught leadership.
Wow.
And I think this is not uncommon. I think this
It's
is
not.
actually what happens most of the
It
time.
is. Yeah.
So let's model some of these things. What can we really offer to people right now? Because I want the superstar, because he'll listen to the show. He'll know who he is. I want him to hear this incredible advice from Mita, who has worked with some pretty awesome leaders, some crappy ones too.
Yeah.
But here's some great leadership things that maybe he can take away, and not just him, but many, many other people that are listening.
Well, first, he can read The Devil Emails at Midnight. Thank you.
Yes.
And for your listeners, as a leadership book. But what I would say is, let's go back to time being the most precious commodity. I like to think of my calendar like my wardrobe. There are things I don't need, things that are out of style. I mean, how many times we're in meetings that we don't need to be in? Like this, like the FOMO versus JOMO, right? As a leader, that's always hard when you're first coming into managing teams. I need to be everywhere. You don't. You need to delegate. You need to go through your calendar either with yourself or your executive assistant to say, this reoccurring thing should have been gone months ago, or I'm having someone else do it, or we're talking about it in some meeting. I am sure everyone listening has been to a meeting or will be going to a meeting where you jump on and you're hanging out for 10, 15 minutes until you realize Mita's on vacation. Or until you say, wait, what's this meeting about? I am convinced if people had the more courage to cancel meetings and do work and connect for 15 minutes, think about audio messages, Slack messages, just sending people quick notes, right? Why do we show up at work? We show up at work because we want to make impact. Some of us have found our purpose. I mean, people want to be seen and recognized and valued in the workplace, no matter what you're doing. So think about that, right? And is it that you're taking time to coach people, to teach them something, to listen to their ideas, right? I always tell people, you can listen to someone's ideas without having to take them. Hear me out. You can say, Mita, thanks so much for that idea. I'm going to take some time to process it. You can go back and say, not for this time, then I'm going to put that in the parking lot. I appreciate you bringing up that suggestion, right? So really think about, I like to think about being in service of others, right? Your number one job as a leader is to raise the next generation of leaders. That's how actually we should be measured, right? When you think about how many people are you getting promoted? How many people are you helping and unlocking their potential? Because when you do that, you unlock the company's potential.
So the great news, guys, feel free, these meetings that are just sitting there that aren't being impactful, get rid of them. I love that. You notice, though, Mita didn't say, don't check in. She actually said, check in more frequently is how I heard it, right? Whether
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, voice note or Slack or whatever your communication tool is.
Yeah. And I'm not telling people to give me 90 minutes a day. Don't misunderstand this. There's a lot of, interesting rhetoric in the marketplaces. You don't need one-on-ones with your teams, right? There's that movement. You don't need to be meeting with everyone on your team. And I disagree. If you want me to stay, you want to have some sort of cadence, right? And then you don't want to be the person who keeps rescheduling that meeting until it's canceled, right? And then never comes back on. But just really think about the small ways. And listen, I think it's great if you can connect on a personal level. You don't need to know my life story, but if you knew my daughter had basketball tryouts this weekend and you were like, hey, how'd those tryouts go? Or, how's your son feeling? Or how was that? Really quick things that create connection, I think is really important as well.
Yeah, so if Medusa's listening, look, Mita's gone on to do some pretty cool things. She has been featured in some major networks and written some big books, works with some huge companies. Imagine if Medusa had said, you know what, Mita, let me check in with you. How are you doing? How are you really doing? What's happening in your world? And actually gave her this time. You still might be at that company. Now, obviously, if the other behaviors were mitigated or but that's what I envision. I see it so often where it's Mita wanted to be there. She was excited. And yet you destroyed this. Now she ends up moving on to the next place.
Yeah.
How was your experience going from Medusa? Did we end up with a great leader?
I did. I did have a great boss. There's nothing like great leaders to heal you from crappy bosses, honestly. And also I always think like be who you needed when you were younger in your career. It's really easy to be like, oh, woe is me. I had a shitty boss then and then. And it's like, well, no, like you can actually, I mean, that's the whole beauty of why I wrote The Devil Emails at Midnight is like, we all have the potential capability of being a bad boss and also to go back through those stories and be like, I don't ever want to be a Medusa. I really hope I never get there. Right. And a part of it too is, and I know you've seen this, is a lot of times executive coaching gets weaponized in our workplaces. Some people really need therapy, right? Like a lot of, 3 of the bosses that I chronicle is not just, yes, I've been micromanaging Mita. We can get into that. Sorry if you worked for me several years ago. Maybe you had another nickname for me like Maleficent, right? Like we've all had our bad boss phases, but some of these people are behaving so badly that you're like, something else deeper is going on that an executive coach isn't going to help with.
Yeah. I want to go to that great boss or some of your great bosses. I've written several blogs on, or articles. It's not a blog, it's an article on the blog. Anyway, specific around like the 3 attributes, like the things that I think great leaders have. I'm curious in your experience and you've obviously you're a subject matter expert on this. So if you were to nail it down to 3, if you can, are there 3 attributes that you're like, look, if you want to be a great boss, you want to be a great leader, these are the 3 things they're just non-negotiables?
I would say, let's start with kindness, which gets really fluffy, or people like kindness. You can still be kind and firm and fair, but isn't it interesting as children, we're raised to say please and thank you, and we forget about that in the workplace. This kindness, gratitude, I think is one. I think, second is around vulnerability and, the ability to just be like, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I apologize. I'm sorry this happened. Or I should, that sort of, and I think having been raised in a corporate America where it was the pyramid and you were on top, right? You had to have all the answers, and gone are those days. So I wish more people would do that. And I think, this idea of being in coach mode, like teaching, like a boss is a teacher, right? If we really flip the script, and I'm athletically challenged, right? I can run fast and that's about it. I used to be able to, but I look at teams, right? Sports teams and coaching, right? Being in the mode of teaching people the skill. I mean, ultimately a boss is a teacher, aren't they? And that's what shifts, I think, a boss to being a leader.
So she said bad bosses weren't born, right? They were made. If you notice the 3 things that she said, these are all things that these are just human things. Nobody was born with, oh my gosh, they're just the most vulnerable person in the world.
No.
Or they're just the kind, well, there are some really kind people, but you know what I mean? Like we can actually work on everything that you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it seems it's amazing how human this whole idea
and
of
it
being
seems so simple, isn't it? But somehow it's complicated. It seems very overly simple. You're like, yeah, it's so complicated.
When you started writing your books, why were you like, yep, Reimagining Inclusion or The Devil Emails at Midnight? Why was it the world needed these books? What was it in the moment that you're like, I have to spend the countless hours and probably sleepless nights and way too much time with my editor, et cetera, when it comes to writing a book? Why was it, it's not a nice to, this is a must have thing that the world needs to have. What was that moment for you?
It's like when you have a dream and your soul is restless, you have something to say, like you just feel unsettled until you do it. That's all I can describe it as. And my big secret, which I've been talking about recently, is in my 20s, I had 3 novels. I had an agent. I actually always wanted to be a writer. And it's so interesting how sometimes we put our dreams aside because we feel like we're not worthy of them. Or in that case, that agent sent me, after working on, I think it was over the course of 2 years, 3 novels and trying to get them sold, and it didn't happen. She sent me like a really unkind email, and I still remember it, and I still held on to it. And I thought, God, I can't be a writer. I suck at it, and I'm not going to make any money. How am I going to pay my bills? And so then I ended up getting an MBA, and people might think, well, that's a departure, but I was always passionate about storytelling, right? And marketing. And so I ended up getting an MBA at Duke University and went on into roles and became a marketing executive and HR executive. But I took, notes along the way. People do journals. I had career journals. I was writing all kinds of things down. Behind me on my bookshelves, you'll see some of them, right? And so I went back through it, and it was really, I lost my father suddenly in 2017, which I talk about in the book, and I entered a bad boss era, trying to grieve him and not grieve him successfully. at the time. And I thought to myself, wow, we have one life to live. Like, what am I doing? And then the pandemic, and I thought, let me just start again. Like, who's stopping me? There's no expiration date on our dreams. And so that's honestly, with his death and the way that he died, I probably wouldn't have gone back into writing, but it was something that just kept calling me. And then here we are, my second book.
Wow. So thank you, agent, for destroying my dreams and sending me to Duke to get an MBA, which that doesn't suck. But yeah, that's again another great example of somebody that is, with their opinion, like you're not going to be blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, cool, but yet here you are, absolutely crushing it. Tell me about Reimagine Inclusion. What is it about that word inclusion? Obviously, we hear, or recently you hear a lot about making sure that we have more inclusion in the workforce.
Yeah.
What does that look like, and what does Reimagine Inclusion? I haven't had a chance to read the book.
No, it's fine. I mean, listen, I think if you're sitting in the US right now, the inclusion's been weaponized, right? And that seems so strange to me because we've lost the plot when it comes to inclusion in the workplace. It means I work for you. We talked about this earlier. I feel seen, I feel valued, I feel recognized. My voice matters, my contribution matters. I come to work knowing I'm making an impact. The worst moments in my career, I'm like, does anyone even know I work here? Like, does anyone even know that I exist? Does anyone care? And like, we come to work because we want to make impact and we want to create an environment where everyone feels like they have an opportunity to reach their potential. Because if they do that, that's what's tied to what the company goals are, right? You hired me for my genius and expertise. Don't you want me to actually shine and actually achieve those goals so that I can help drive the company's goals? And that's what it's really about. And so I thought about, I debunk 13 myths, right, to transform your workplace. And I thought about the stories we tell our children at night when they're going to bed and how those stories that we tell ourselves in the workplace might not be true. And so that's the premise of the book.
So recognition is what I really heard, right? We spend 33% of our lives or actually more if you think about sleep, like 33% of our lives. That's not even our waking hours. Like it's more than that.
It is
at work. And like you said, I want to feel like I'm doing something. I want to feel appreciated. I want to create an impact. And it's free to every company that's listening. Simply saying, you know what, Mita, I think you did a great job with whatever the thing that you did. Like, thank you. It costs that Medusa or the great leader $0 to just say, I see you, I appreciate you, thank you. And yet this is what everybody is yearning for, and it's just not happening. Why is that? It's so strange.
Yeah, that is the biggest retention tool we have at our disposal. I don't need another oversized hoodie, a water bottle, a free meditation app, free snacks, pizza. No, I mean, imagine you let me present my own work. You introduce me to the CEO. I get to come to the client pitch. I get to, send that Slack instead of you cutting and pasting it and sending it to, the founder. Like, those are like but that's really it. I think about wasn't included in the meeting, right? I wasn't involved in the offsite. I wasn't chosen. Like, think about all those times. Like, exclusion's a really powerful emotion. We've all experienced that. And in the workplace, when it's tied to our work, you're like, but I just want people to know what I'm working on and to be valued. I don't need a gold star every day. But also, when you don't get it at all, like you don't get any sort of recognition or appreciation, and it goes back to how we started the conversation, the devil who emails at midnight. That was like, it was really interesting in that moment. I actually emailed her back. That's the other thing people talk about. It's in that power dynamic. We went into this whole like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I wanted to be valued by her. It was a people pleaser. I wanted to be relevant. So of course I was going to do that to get my boss's attention, because actually the only time she gave me any attention or saw me or recognized me was when it was on her time off hours.
I'm curious how much responsibility it would be for the person that is looking for that recognition, the person that's putting in the work. Of course, I would love for all leaders to be like, yeah, I have a practice of giving X amount of gratitude, and it's just part of my DNA. That's not reality. Maybe someday we'll get the whole leadership paradigm to get there. I'm hopeful, but doubtful. How much responsibility lies with that person? And my question would be, I've found more people will literally just leave their job than actually have the
Mm,
confrontational moment. I'm
yes.
using
Yeah.
air quotes right now to say, look, all I'm looking for is a little validation, a little bit of thank you. And if you did that, I will go run through that brick wall for you. How much of that responsibility lies in that employee? Because one of the
Yeah.
things I absolutely hate it, is when there's a bad, let's say mid-level manager, and you have a budding superstar, but is leaving because of the mid-level manager. You may have
Mm,
a badass CEO and a great executive team, but because of this one cog in the wheel, and
yes.
if this employee, this budding superstar doesn't speak up, they're gone. And what a disservice to the potential of that company. How much
Sure.
responsibility lies with that budding superstar?
Yeah, I love that question that you asked. It's about managing up. And you think about it's not managing up. My dad, rest in peace, was raised by Indian immigrant parents. I call him a tiger dad. He used to say, keep your head down, work hard. You're going to be recognized and stay out of trouble, which is funny because I was a kid who was scared of her own shadow. But that idea of like stay out of trouble is like, don't get involved in the office politics. Your boss knows all. Bosses are not these demigods or like superhumans, right? I've been a boss, I've been a leader, I've managed huge teams. We forget things. So, this idea of managing up is actually trying to help your boss out to make sure they can work well with yourself and others and reminding them of all the things you work on. So, no one's going to advocate for your career if you don't. I learned that the hard way. And so, whether it's like, reminding them of some of the things you're working on, sending them some of the accolades you're getting. I never was the person, here's the thing, like sometimes was okay with not being in the meeting and then would complain about it later. But did you ask, right? Did you say, this is important to me? I'd love to just come in for 5 minutes. Or like, I know that this training's coming up and I noticed I wasn't on it. Like, is there an opportunity for me or could I do it next time? Like actually asking those questions, I think you're absolutely right. Rather than just sort of like being like, brooding in the corner and angry and the downward spiral starts. They're not doing this for me. And it's like, it's your career. You've got to own it.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I was thinking culturally, this is so important because my wife, we talk about this openly. My wife, her parents, very, very much fought like a different culture, right? She's half Thai, half Chinese. I'm, I guess, European white dude. Okay. But the idea in our homes, her parents, they would fight like, I mean, cats and dogs. That's just like another Tuesday. My family, if anybody even remotely argued, it was the end of the world. Like, what the
Yeah.
heck? And
Yeah.
so, my point is, our marriage, it took us a while to understand, like, yeah, we just had a fight. No big
Yeah.
deal. We're in
Yeah.
her eyes, we're communicating. In my eyes, it's like, oh my gosh, we're on the verge of divorce. Where are we going?
Yeah.
And where this is applicable
Yeah.
is when you're the leader, everybody has grown up in a different way. Again, I was raised in Montana, she was in California, different cultures. And my point is, it doesn't work effectively to whether it's the fear tactic or to everyone because they were raised differently.
Absolutely.
How do we check in on that? And as we have diverse workforces, make sure that not that we're changing who we are to really adhere to their culture, but we have maybe an understanding that they come from a different
Yeah.
viewpoint.
I mean, don't make assumptions, just ask for clarification. I always like to talk about we have our facts versus feelings. I like to journal, as you know, I put the feelings in the notebook, but then I might say, we were in a meeting earlier and I noticed that you were looking at your phone a lot or you were distracted or I noticed that you raised your voice and you might say, oh, that's just me excited. I'm sorry. I'm not angry. That's how I come off passionate, right? However, these different styles might be. Or I am, I pose as an extrovert. I am an introvert, right? But if I'm more quieter in meetings or you're watching me listen to a recommendation or observe, or I'm the last to speak because I want the team to speak first, you might think I'm disengaged or angry or disinterested. Just ask, right? Ask clarifying questions. I think we too often make assumptions and we make up narratives and stories in our head of what's actually happening, right? And that's why we go back to the vulnerability piece. It's like, listen, I'm not saying that we need to have therapy sessions at work or we're not trauma dumping, as people say, but it's like, hey, if you were a mirror and you caught me in the hallway and you said, Mita, this is what I observed. You were distracted in the meeting, you were scrolling on your phone, and then you were pretty short with the team towards the end, right? When you delivered your response. And if you said it in that way, just as if you had the iPhone had recorded me. And you said that to me and you said, I'm just checking in. And I said, I just had a fight with my husband right before this meeting, right? We don't know what's going on behind the screen in people's lives. And if you just said that and you said, I'm sorry I behaved that way. You're right. I'm going to send a note to the team. I need to see that. I need to look at that recommendation again and give it some thought. I want to give them more time. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I wish we could do that more for each other in the workplace.
I think where that works as well is you notice she didn't label anything. Mita didn't say, you are lazy, you are this. She said, no. Here's what I observed. It's like, if you've ever gone through therapy, I felt X when you said Y. It's like, instead of saying you are this, it's to say, this is what I saw. Mm-hmm. Tell me what I'm missing. Is there anything, what's happening?
Yes.
And I think you're an HR executive. I'm certainly not. I come from the world of 1099 for years. So I would probably break a lot of HR rules, but I don't think that breaks any.
No, it doesn't.
By having a human conversation.
Human. As you said, it's the whole thing that's missing is like, when leadership loses humanity, as a friend said to me, she said, I read your book and that's what I kept thinking is all these moments people lose their humanity. That's what it's about. Bringing more, ironically, human resources, bringing more human back to the workplace.
Yeah. And I think this is, again, I don't come from the corporate world. Did it feel like some places had that humanity and others didn't? I mean, I feel oftentimes when I talk to people, corporate America gets this very staunch, like you're just a number. Yeah. And if you don't perform, you're out. Is that really the case? Or are they getting kind of painted with a bad brush?
I think yes and no. I think there are a lot of leaders in there who are leaning into humanity and checking in on people. I absolutely do. I mean, listen, I think it's a tough market right now. I mean, every day there's another merger, acquisition, or, big rounds of companies laying off in a time where, layoffs are hard to do. You can do them with kindness, but the simple idea of a layoff seems very inhumane, right? It goes back to that job security and community and taking care of each other. So that can be at odds. But yeah, I haven't lost hope. There are a lot of great leaders out there who lead with humanity. And there are moments where I think we all can, slip into our bad boss behaviors.
You mentioned earlier that, and you just slipped AI in there. We didn't dive into it. I didn't grab it and dive into it. But I'm curious when it comes to, you said it's becoming more and more challenging is what I heard anyway. What is your outlook when it comes to AI completely being a part of everyday work now? And how are you seeing some of the advantages and disadvantages when it comes to leadership?
Yeah. I think we were talking earlier about the stress people might find about AI is going to replace me. It's going to be a bot doing my job. And it's like, are you leaning into AI and are you AI forward thinking, right? Are you a individual who is embracing AI and using it and experimenting? I think that's what people want to see. I hope AI doesn't generate a new crop of lazy bosses. I hope that, and I will use that label, I'll label there. I hope that you think, wow, all these things. I mean, I think about it as an HR executive or a marketing executive. So many things you can scale and automate. That's awesome. So then you have actually time to coach people and train people. And, as a writer, I use ChatGPT, I've used Claude, I've looked at these things and yeah, it's a great thought partner, but at least right now in my lifetime, I don't still see that emotion is missing for me, right? Only I know my stories, only I can tell them. And so that part is missing. And so I think about all the things that we can lean into that AI can't generate. And if we actually doubled down on that and made time for our teams and train them and coach them, AI has the possibility to do a lot of wonderful things in the workplace.
I think it's a beautiful way to look at it, guys, that some of the, really redundant tasks, now you can actually go use that to do some love, share some love with your people.
Yeah.
EPR, encourage, praise, and recognize. Mita, what didn't I know enough to ask you? I'm sure I could ask you questions all day long about leadership and your what you face, but I'm sure there's something that I just wasn't aware enough to know. Yeah. Let's talk about this. Let's make sure.
I mentioned it, but I think you didn't ask me what my bad boss tendency is.
Oh, okay.
So I hope anyone listening, you come away with, hopefully you listen to this conversation and then you read the book, but you think about what's that one tendency that I have that I grab onto during moments of stress. And for me, it's micromanaging, and it can swing this way or this way. So you can say, I'm either a micromanager or I have high standards and I'm holding people accountable. There's a difference. And too often in my career, I demanded excellence from people, but I didn't coach excellence. And so there's a difference, right? And so I hope everyone thinks about that. What's that one tendency we have that can go like a pendulum swing under moments of stress?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm sitting there going, I'm sure I have plenty. I'm sure I do, but what is that one tendency? That's so yours
Well, there's
is
probably more
micromanagement.
than one. I don't want people to feel overwhelmed. I mean, I'm sure I have 5, but it's like, let's think about one. I know, because I can do it best and I have a vision in my head and I have really high standards and it's going to be easier for me to just do it than tell you how to do it. And you did it and it's just easier for me to redline it all back and send it to you, right? You can just read all my comments and not feel completely crappy that I redid the entire proposal without any context. Right. So that's for me, what it can look like and how I can rationalize it to myself, unfortunately.
Interesting. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reach out to the people I've been leading and I want to know. So guys, if you're listening, feel free, send it over. I love feedback. It's pure gold. It's like you cannot give me anything but pure gold, no matter if you think it's hurtful or not. I promise I will take it in a way that's
Love that.
good. Yeah, because it is pure gold.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This was awesome. Where can people connect with you? They want to go check out The Devil Emails at Midnight, Reimagine Inclusion, the work that you're up to.
Thank you. You can find my books on Amazon or your local independent bookseller. You can find me on LinkedIn. I actually really love meeting people over in live or virtual cup of coffee. And you can find me at mitamallick.com. Thanks so much. This was an awesome conversation.
No, it's my pleasure. If this conversation hit you in the gut, good. Leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being aware. Every one of us has the ability to become a great leader or a terrible one, depending on the habits we allow, the boundaries we ignore, and the courage we bring to the people who count on us. If something in Mita's message made you think differently about how you show up, share this episode with one person who leads people or wants to. That is how we change the culture, one conversation at a time. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit follow so you'll never miss an insight that helps you lead better, live healthier, and win from within. And if this helped you in any way, take a moment to rate and review the show. It makes a huge difference and help these conversations reach the people who need them most. Thank you for being here. Now go lead with clarity, with courage, and with humanity. Let's go win.